Campus to Canton. Campus to Canton on the Better Sports Network.
I want to welcome our new fantasy alarm audience. It's Felix, Sharpe, Chris Moxley. This is Campus to Canton on Better Sports Radio. There are a few things that you need to know about us. We talk about college football here all year round. College football, really with a projection towards the NFL, because in our game, Campus to Canton is the name of a website and the name of a game. You play college and NFL fantasy football in the same league. You have two teams, one college team, one NFL team, and so you're playing college fantasy football every single week. And then when your college players declare for the NFL draft, they are added to your NFL roster. So that is what we talk about all year round around here. But one other thing you need to know on this show. Will Chudy, our producer, Auburn grad. If we do a good job in a segment, he rewards us with good music when we come back from the break. If we didn't do a good job, we get yakety sax and honky talk around here. So you are all caught up here on Campus Canton. The other thing that you should know is we take this very, very seriously. No jokes, no funny business around here, Chris Moxley. You know what I'm talking about. No funny business around here. So we want to start the show today with the segment called Pandering to Management. Pandering to Management, Chris. That's the name of the segment. Chris, do you know Matt Deutsch?
Yeah, I'm familiar with the name.
Founder here. Great guy.
Yeah, why did I even say good? Great, fantastic, amazing.
Stand-up guy.
Stand-up.
Smart. Have you ever smelled him? Smells like the ocean.
No, I haven't. Just incredible. I can only imagine the ocean only.
Salt of the earth. Salt of the earth. Broad shoulders.
I've heard that.
Give you the shirt off his back.
Yeah.
He's like the kind of guy that women want to be with and men want to be like. That's Matt Deutsch. Men probably want to be with him too.
Yeah.
Do you know where he went to school?
Where he went to college? Is it University of Buffalo?
University at Buffalo.
Great school.
Fine institution.
Absolutely. I've heard that possibly the best institution in upstate New York, actually.
The Harvard of Buffalo, as a matter of fact.
Makes sense.
Often called. Many are saying this.
I've heard that.
The Harvard of Buffalo. Well, Buffalo in men's tennis this week took on Binghamton and split 6 singles matches against Binghamton. I have no idea what that means.
That's not bad. I mean, it could be worse.
Go Buffaloes.
Go
Buffaloes.
Go Buffs.
Go Buffs.
Go Buffs.
Go Buffs.
I mean, I can't say enough about the school, right? 5 Nobel laureates, 5 Pulitzer winners, 2 astronauts, 3 billionaires, an Academy Award winner, an Emmy winner. This school only produces the best of the best.
That's damn right.
Where else would Matt Deutsch have gone?
That's damn right. The Harvard of Buffalo.
The Harvard of Buffalo. Will this help us stay on the air for another week?
I mean, we've got some making up to do for some of the shenanigans we've pulled over the last couple of weeks. So hopefully, fingers crossed. Let's get into some college football here. Actually, a mix, Chris Moxley, of college football and the NFL. So we've got the draft coming up in a couple of weeks. We've got the draft coming up, and we're going to lose some of college football stars to the NFL, which happens every week. So I want to talk about some of the faces and players that will be replacing those guys departing for the NFL draft. I don't know where we should start here. We can start at quarterback.
Yeah, let's start at the prime position.
Start at quarterback. We've got three, or on my count, we've got three guys who are probably going to be first-round draft picks. Will Levis, I don't understand the hype with Will Levis. But we've got Anthony Richardson, Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, and Will Levis. Those are the four. Anthony Richardson, Florida. Billy Napier down there. Comes from Louisiana.
Sunbelt Billy.
Sunbelt G5 Billy. Does not use Anthony Richardson the way he should use him. He had games like 6 games with single-digit carries. And a lot of those games when he had single-digit carries, they weren't even designed runs. I have no idea what Billy Napier was doing. But he's going to have to replace his quarterback. He's got Graham Mertz, the transfer from Wisconsin. Now, if you are a college football fan, you may remember the COVID-19 shortened season back in 2020 and the Big Ten delaying the start of their season. And Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence were really the face of let us play. And eventually that working, and the season just started and delayed. But it was the Big Ten only faced Big Ten opponents. A lot of conferences did that. Well, Graham Mertz, I believe that was his redshirt freshman year. I think their first game was against Illinois. Illinois. He went off in that game. I think he completed every pass that he threw and threw for 4 touchdowns, was running a lot of, play action, deep stuff, the kind of stuff you would expect when, like Wisconsin is a team that establishes the run. But he looked really good doing it. He has not had a good game since then, that 2020 season. He is now in Florida looking to replace Anthony Richardson. And Chris, I don't know if I've mentioned this, but Graham Mertz, Anthony Richardson, completely different players.
Not even close.
Not really close at all.
Not really close. The Florida spring game is actually on as we record, to be honest. And it's not going well for Graham Mertz, I'll tell you that right now. And he might not even win that competition. Jack Miller, who transferred in last offseason, might win the competition. Graham Mertz has one good game. Yeah, transfer from Ohio State.
Transfers from Ohio State, is from the Arizona area, is the other guy vying for that job. Jack Miller has not shown any promise at all, at all.
We saw him one game last year, I think, for the full game, and that was the bowl game against Oregon, where they lost 30-3, and G5 Billy, Sunbelt Billy, kicked the field goal to preserve Florida's 100 whatever game not shutout streak, coward stuff. That's Billy.
That's Billy. So those are the names vying for Florida's starting job, and it's going to be a bad year in Florida.
It's going to be a bad year in Florida.
It's going to be a bad year. Billy Napier might be done after this year. And we knew that it was a bad hire when we saw what that offense looked like at the start of the year last year with Anthony Richardson at the helm. Oh, you know how they say some coaches are, they go in and they do what the quarterback is good at. Well, no, Billy Napier said, I'm going to run my stuff and I'm going to have these guys run my stuff. And
from Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns, he's not coming from a premier program at the time. He's bringing his Sunbelt Raging Cajun offense to.
And he might be raging Gators right back to Louisiana after this season because
they'll take him back. He's a great coach at the Group of 5.
They would take him back. I think they would take him back. But they're going to be in hot water in Florida. Sorry, Gainesville. Bryce Young, who many think is going to be the first pick in the draft. Bryce Young, we've kind of known what it was going to be about with Bryce Young for a long time. 5-star prospect, was there backing up Mac Jones. A lot of people thought that Bryce Young would beat Mac Jones out for that job, but played at I would say modern day is probably number one as far as elite high school programs in the country. Modern day is in California. Bishop Gorman in Las Vegas is another one. I would put them 1 and 2, and Bryce Young started his last season at modern day. 2 options there, Chris. And I know that you like this guy. Ty Simpson. talk to me a little bit about what Ty Simpson is, who is also a 5-star prospect. He is fighting. He's in a quarterback battle with Jalen Milroe there at Alabama. What do you like about Ty Simpson?
Yeah, I think he has all the tools, but he's so loose and like he really thrives out of structure. Like he's your backyard quarterback, and I think that fits for what people, coaches, teams want out of quarterbacks in this day and age. But he needs to rein it in a little bit. I think he has all the potential, and I think he's a much better passer than Jalen Milroe, who is entering his third year there. So I think he definitely is a better passer. And he's good. He has good mobility as well. I don't want to undersell his athleticism because he is pretty mobile, but his passing is really what's going to separate him between if he wins competition, it's because of passing, not the athleticism. If it's the other way around,
he's excellent out of structure. I would compare him to a Tony Romo or Johnny Manziel when the play breaks down and they're dodging defensive tackles. He's that type of player. If he wins the job, Alabama's offense is going to be really exciting. Tommy Rees, the new offensive coordinator there. The other guy is Jalen Milroe. I think that the offense is going to be more run-based if Jalen Milroe is your starting quarterback. Now, allegedly, he is looking much better in spring camp than he did in the games that he had to start for Bryce Young last season. But,
as a passer. But
nowhere to go
but up, to be honest. He was quite bad when we saw him against A&M last year.
He was. But also more of a where Ty Simpson thrives in chaos, I would say Jalen Milroe is more of a straightforward linear runner.
He's big. He's like downhill run over you, not a nimble kind of rusher like Lamar Jackson. He's way closer to
Cam Newton.
Yeah.
And could be used that way at the goal line if you wanted to. Not as big as Cam Newton, but that's more of the spectrum that he exists on. That's Alabama. Let's go to Ohio State. C.J. Stroud, is one of the more accurate passers that I've seen in the game. Ryan Day is always kind of getting these guys to put the ball in the right places. But C.J. Stroud, I think, did that to another level with just how accurate he was between, 20 and 30 yards down the field. He's got two guys vying for the job behind him. Kyle McCord is from the Philadelphia area, played with Marvin Harrison Jr. in high school, is going into his third year. And Devin Brown, one of my favorite, a player who is a drop-back passer who is not afraid to throw the ball in tight windows. I think that he had one of the strongest arms, if not the strongest arm, in the 2021 class. A high 4-star prospect. Went to the same high school as Zach Wilson, Corner Canyon in Utah. Both of these players have extremely high ceilings. Now, I think Kyle McCord is probably more similar to like Dwayne Haskins, straight drop back. I don't know that I would necessarily call him creative. I think sometimes his ball flutters a little bit like Jameis Winston's ball. I think Devin Brown is more athletic, has a stronger arm. But it's looking like, Ryan Day goes with the veterans in his program. And so all indications are that it's going to be Kyle McCord who starts there. And but it's a really strong quarterback room, Chris.
It is. My guess is that it's going to be Kyle McCord as well. I don't think it's going to be Devin Brown. As an aside, though, Devin Brown changed his number to 33 as a quarterback. Thoughts? Like that? Does that take him out of the competition, or at least downgrade him at least a little bit? Just
Listen,
optically.
I know that they do it for the respect of some guy who played there whenever.
I think it's like Sammy Baugh. He was the first quarterback elected into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He was number 33. So that's why he did it. But you can't be a quarterback in this day and age and be rocking 33. I'm sorry, Devin Brown. Common McCord's rocking a very normal number.
Right.
He's been in the system longer. He's the ball placement specialist that I think is going to excel in a Ryan Day system. I still think Devin Brown could be the guy in a year. So I don't want to discount him either. It's just I don't think it's going to be him, and he's hurt as well.
Back. Devin Brown is hurt?
He won't play in their spring game this week. So
that's one of the players I was looking forward to seeing. Devin Brown hurt.
I'm sorry.
But a player who will throw the ball into tight windows, and I love those type of throws. But change your number. Stop it, Devin Brown. Stop it. Will Levis, Kentucky. He is being replaced by longtime NC State quarterback Devin Leary. Now, there was a time at which I thought Devin Leary was a potential, day 2 quarterback. Senior, drop back passer, but is really an efficient passer, I think. That's it. He's a guy who's improved every year in college. And there's no competition. It's going to be Devin Leary. Yeah. For those who don't know, Kentucky has 2 of the most explosive wide receivers. Actually, you could go 3 deep with Kentucky in the country. Normally, Kentucky not known for producing wide receiver crosses. Between Dane Key and Berrien Brown is a guy that's going to go to the NFL Combine and run a 4.29. Somebody who will test like Marquise Brown. That's a fair compliment. I
was going to ask you what you think his archetype is. Is it a Marquise Brown archetype? Because I think he's more like
he's thin. He's small.
Yeah, he's. If he adds a little bit of weight, I think he could be like a Jalen Waddle type. But he needs to add.
I agree. Yeah, he needs to add a lot of weight. I mean, he needs to get up to 185. I think he's like 165.
That's the type of player he is, and he's utilized in that like twitchy, not quite gadgety, but like really explosive kind of receiver way.
Had one of his best games against Georgia last year, like 127 yards receiving.
Best kick returner in the country as a true freshman.
Best kick returner, absolutely. The best kick returner in the country. And I think that like his NFL draft profile is elevated to a certain level because he can do that.
Yeah.
Because he can do that. And he'll go to the NFL and be one of the best kick returners in the NFL.
Yeah. He's already that as like a 19-year-old. He'll be fine.
Listen, in an SEC that might be down because Georgia has a new quarterback, a new offensive coordinator, they're losing a bunch of players to the NFL draft. Same with Alabama. You could have the SEC coming back to the pack, and Kentucky could be a team that surprises if that is the case. Now, Georgia's schedule is ridiculously easy this season, ridiculously easy. But, the elite tier programs in the SEC are not rebuilding, but they're retooling. And you can see a team, and they've got Raymond Davis in the backfield. Raymond Davis has had an excellent career between 2 stops between Temple and Vanderbilt, a veteran running back. Just think about what Kenneth Walker did at Michigan State, going from Wake Forest to Michigan State. Raymond Davis is trying to take that career path to the NFL. He's now at Kentucky. They've got an explosive offense. They've got explosive players.
I think the biggest thing is that last year you saw them take a major step back to where they were in 2021. Liam Cohen went to the Rams from Kentucky. They hired Rich Scangarello. Scangarello is now gone, and Liam Cohen is back. And I expect that offense to be more creative than it was in 2022. They also lost their offensive line coach to Alabama and 2 starters, like 2 high-end starters to the NFL. So this Kentucky team will be a lot better, I think, than they were last year, even though they're losing Will Levis, who I'm not sure Devin Leary is much worse than.
Devin Leary should have a completion percentage in like the mid-60s if everything goes right. He's going to be a good player. Hendon Hook. So Tennessee offensively is a team that everyone needs to pay attention to. Josh Heupel comes from the Art Briles tree. Art Briles always explosive offense. They line up their wide receivers way outside the numbers to make your defense guard as much space as possible. That's what they're running at Tennessee. Jalen Hyatt, Cedric Tillman last year. Hendon Hooker, who I've even seen in some first-round mock drafts, he's jumping to the NFL.
The crazy people. Mike Tannenbaum, who owns a stake So Mike Tannenbaum, who owns a stake of the agency that represents CAA, which represents Hendon Hooker, is the one putting out Hendon Hooker first round stuff. By the way, I just want to hold the powers that be accountable.
Well, vying for his job are Joe Milton, former Michigan quarterback, awful passer, but huge athlete. Probably 250 pounds, like 6'4",
He's this year's version of Anthony Richardson. If he can put it together with the passing.
Don't say that. He's
yes,
not as
he
explosive.
is.
He's not.
Oh, he is as
He's
explosive.
not as explosive as a rusher. He's not going to go run a 4.4.
Well, Anthony Richardson is probably the best athlete
people.
I've ever saw the quarterback.
Do not
position,
tell people.
So maybe not.
But is a big athlete, and he's in a
very good
passing system. One of the guys who could have a Kenny Pickett-like season and surprise, be like, Joe Milton's being considered for the first round. Yeah, that is possible because he has better physical tools than Hendon Hooker. He does, and played well in the bowl game against Clemson last year. So watch out for Joe Milton. Nico Iamaleava is kind of the guy, the freshman quarterback from California there for Tennessee. We don't think he's going to start this year, but Nico Iamaleava widely considered to be the first one with a massive NIL deal, $8 million, part of which was paid while he was still in high school, and the rest of which will be paid over his next 3 seasons in college. That's who's vying for the starting job, but it's probably going to be Joe Milton. Tennessee's spring game, I think, is tomorrow, is Saturday. So
yeah,
it might be. We got to check on that.
I think so.
But pay attention to that quarterback position. Let's go to break here. When we come back, we'll get to the replacement faces at the running back position. At wide receiver, it's Chris Moxley, Felix Sharpe. This is Campus to Canton on Better Sports Network.
Campus to Canton.
Better Sports Network. Collectible moments.
Everybody up here at U.S. Cellular. Sox 5 runs, 6 hits. The 2-1 to Bartlett. Swing, chop to short. Ramirez has it, throws. Burley picks the perfect game. His second no-hitter. People going crazy here at U.S. Cellular. He's mobbed by his teammates. A perfecto.
Now there's a steal by Bird. Underneath the DJ, lays it in. Right up, 1 second left. What a play by Bird. Bird stole the impounding pass. Laid it up to DJ. DJ laid it up and in. And Boston has a 1-point lead with 1 second left.
Out of the I formation on first down. Peterson to carry, looking for running room on the right side, has it to the 25, across the 30, across the 35, and out of bounds at the 40-yard line. Adrian Peterson has just gone over 2,000 yards for the season, the 7th man in NFL history to cross the 2,000-yard mark.
Well, a thundering ovation for number 66, Mario Lemieux.
Just the emotion I'm sure Mario is feeling in this place. You don't appreciate something until it's gone, and it's so great to have Mario back.
Yager turns around. Over to Lemieux. Mario Lemieux, his first goal in his comeback here tonight at the Mellon Arena. And the Penguins lead 3-0, and he is smiling like a butcher's dog. Mario Lemieux.
Oh, the band is out on the field. He's going to go into the end zone. The Bears have scored, but the Bands are out on the field.
Pearson moves in front of the STP Dodge. Petty comes back to the inside. They almost touch as they move down low in the banking. They're going to be side by side as they exit the bank and head for the finish line.
Richard Petty goes back in front. They both spin. They're in the wall. Petty is sliding, slamming into the wall. He's coming down toward the finish line. Will he make it? Pearson is still running. The winner is car number 21. An amazing finish. Richard Petty's car demolished in the front end, as well as car number 21. An unbelievable finish, a terrible crash. David Pearson has won the Daytona 500. Leitner catches, comes down, dribbles, shoots, scores! Christian Leitner has hit the bucket at the buzzer! Pitched by Downing, swinging, there's a drive into left-handed field. That ball is going to be out of here. It's gone. It's 7-15. There's a new home run champion of all time, and it's Henry Aaron.
The most valuable player is Magic Johnson. 42 points, 15 rebounds, and 7 assists. He starts at center, plays forward and guard, and leads the Los Angeles Lakers to a world championship 123-107 over Philadelphia.
Whether you collect sports memorabilia, fantasy championships, or winning bet slips, talk about it on Better Sports Network.
Good job, Chris Moxley. Well done. We want to welcome our Fantasy Alarm audience. This is your college football show on the Better Sports Network, Campus to Canton. Chris, I think one of my favorite things in a Campus to Canton or C2C league is probably trading NFL players for college players or vice versa. So you can trade a player like Bryce Young for Kyle McCord, Devin Brown, Caleb Williams, Arch Manning, if you wanted to. That's one of my favorite aspects of playing. What's one of yours? Give me one of yours.
I love drafting players to play on my college fantasy team that probably are never going to make it to the NFL. Finding guys who are like awesome college players. They'll give you 1,000 yards, 10 touchdowns. You will never hear from them again. I love those kinds of success stories. It's fun. Devin Tompkins did this at Utah State. Mm-hmm. And he's played with the Packers. I think he's been on the Packers 53-man roster, practice squad. He's gone back and forth. I don't know for sure if he's played in the NFL, but that's a dude who's like 5'8", 150 who just dominated the entire conference. I love those types of stories, and I love being able to find and draft those players that lead you to championships who you will never hear from again, but just it's just really, really cool.
It gives you a lot to pay attention to on a Saturday. And I think one of the things that I enjoy the most is if you have a West Coast team playing, those teams usually start at 7, 8 Pacific time, which is 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock Eastern time. Or if you have the nerve to have Hawaii playing, you can be down 30 and you're on the college matchup that you have for that week, and then wake up and you've won by 20 because you've got Jake Haener, who's in this draft playing at Fresno State. He was often that guy for me. I would be down 20-something, 30-something. I'm all right, Jake Haener and Jalen Cropper is wide receiver. I've got you guys going tonight. I'm going to go to sleep and hope that you can pull it out for me. And sometimes
70 points between the two.
Former UDFA Carson Strong, UDFA for the Eagles. They actually gave him one of the largest UDFA contracts as far as signing bonuses that we see. He didn't make the team, but he was also that player. He has knee. He had knee issues. He was also that player for me who was playing on these West Coast games, played for Nevada, and I would wake up and he would have scored 45 points or so. So if you're listening to this and that sounds like something that you'd be interested, reach out to us. We'd love to get you involved. Let's go. Before we went to break, we were talking about replacement players who are replacing these guys at their programs, replacing the players who are departing for the NFL draft. We went through the quarterback position, running backs. Bijan Robinson, widely regarded to be, I've heard people in the NFL draft circle say that this is a Hall of Fame running back prospect. I don't even know what that means anymore, because is Dalvin Cook a Hall of Fame running back?
No.
I don't think Adrian Peterson obviously is.
Yep.
Well, Christian McCaffrey is Christian
McCaffrey.
Frank Gore he's a compiler? I mean, Frank Gore. Are we calling Frank Gore? I don't think Frank Gore is a Hall of Famer.
I don't know if Christian McCaffrey will. I don't know if
he's been the best. How not?
I actually think it's going to be harder for running backs to enter the Hall of Fame because
I agree with you, because they do not play as long, and they're
he used to get productive seasons at age 30, 31. Derrick Henry, I think, is probably a running back who could be in the Hall of Fame.
The last certified generation. First ballot Hall of Fame running back is probably who? Adrian Peterson? Anybody since then? I can't think.
McCaffrey might be the closest, yeah. Derrick Henry, I would also.
I don't think Derrick Henry is a first round Hall of Fame running.
Oh, he's not a first ballot, no doubt Hall of Famer, but he might be one of the guys that sneaks in.
If he has 7 more years of elite production, maybe he gets in on the longevity piece. But I don't think that Derrick Henry has Derrick Henry ever been this is the best running back in football. I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't.
It
Yeah, I guess it depends.
Yeah.
I think he's been the best pure rusher for a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, do you think Marshawn Lynch is going to get in?
I don't know. I don't know, because remember, he had a slow start to his career before he kind of like picked it up.
He went to Seattle from Buffalo.
Seattle, yeah.
Sean McCoy. I don't think he's a Hall of Famer. I mean, he's probably close-ish.
But not first ballot, though.
No.
Not first ballot.
I'm trying to think. Jamal Charles? Probably not.
I don't know if he played long enough. Like, these are guys who are good fantasy players, but like when you compare their careers to like Emmitt Smith and Barry Sanders, guys who are still producing at
I just don't think you're going
to
get running backs in the Hall of Fame at the same clip that maybe you used to.
It's also like those guys don't get another big contract at age 28. Like, owners are not paying those guys. They're not giving them a 4-year contract. You're not going to see Emmitt Smith or Edgerrin James types, getting a big contract with a second team. It just doesn't. The economics of that position don't favor, giving them those big handouts. So I don't know.
Yeah. Well, we got Will saying Frank Gore too. So here, I mean, you got to give him some. Like, he was really, really good when he was in San Francisco.
He was okay. He was good. He was never the best running back in the league.
Does he hold? No, he can't hold the all-time rushing record.
No, but I think that he was very, very close. Like, I think he's in the top 5-ish or something.
That's worth something, isn't it?
I guess, but he took a long time to do it.
Adrian Peterson's the last guy.
Adrian Peterson is the last guy that's certified as soon as his 5 years is up. Yeah. I think Adrian Peterson could be in the NFL right now, to be honest with you.
He was just in the NFL like 2 years ago and he stunk.
No, he did not. He was with my Detroit Lions. He did not stink. This is not even our subject area.
All right, sorry. That's true. That's true. It's not our subject area.
Bijan Robinson, Texas, Hall of Fame potential there for Bijan Robinson.
Sure.
There are 4 guys vying for this position, and I think 2 of them are very, very interesting, Chris. In Jadon Blue, his last season in college, was it the COVID year?
In high school,
last year in high school, excuse me. He skipped his last year.
He took the year off. Yeah, but it was the COVID year.
It was the COVID year, and then joined his program. Was a freshman last year.
Yeah.
A player with an all-around skill set who can catch the ball, who can be explosive. Did not have the freshman season that we thought. But, I mean, you got Roschon Johnson and Bijan Robinson there, 2 guys in front of him. He's vying for that starting spot, along with Cedric Baxter, who for most is the number 1 running back in this freshman class. 210 pounds, 4.5, 40-yard dash. I mean, to run a 4.5 in high school is like,
really
elite.
fast.
Yeah, really, really, it's elite. So Saquon Barkley, 4.66. Justin Jefferson, high school time, 4.78. George Pickens was like a 4.8 dude in high school. So when you're running 4.5 in high school, especially at 210 pounds, very, very athletic. He's there. Jonathan Brooks is there, a guy who's been there. I would say Jonathan Brooks is more of a thumper, and then Keelan Robinson, a former Alabama transfer, who's more a smaller back who probably is more of plays a complementary piece. Mox, Steve Sarkisian has like always had a 1,000-yard back. Like when you look at it, you can go back to his USC teams, and if you play fantasy football, you recognize this game. Buck Allen, Javorius Buck Allen, for his USC teams, ran for like 1,400 yards and had 35 catches or something his last season at USC. That is what Steve Sarkisian produces year in and year out. So we don't know who the name is there right now at Texas, but it is really important to figure out who that is, because one, that player is going to be productive and probably project to be at least a day 2 NFL draft pick whenever that person declares for the NFL draft.
Yes and no. I think so. the one thing that I'll say is I think Brooks is going to be the lead back day one. He'll be the one who gets the first snaps, however you want to phrase it. I think by game 3 or 4, Cedric Baxter takes the lead role. And if I'm to lay money down on who I think is going to be the 1,000-yard rusher, it would be him. I think Cedric Baxter is by far the best back in that backfield as it stands. I liked Jadon Blue last year a lot. He was hurt last year, and I feel like he was like 200, 205, according to all measurements. And then he came into Texas, and he was like 190. That's a huge concern.
Yeah.
That he was just listed so much differently than where he was as a recruit. And so
he was a highly rated recruit who might be out of favor with that program already.
Yep.
Might be out of favor with that program already. But
love Cedric Baxter, though.
It could be Jonathan Brooks who starts. But Steve Sarkisian does not – Steve Sarkisian was the offensive coordinator Najee Harris's last year at Alabama. Najee Harris, great last season before he was the NFL draft pick for the Pittsburgh Steelers in the first round. Steve Sarkisian doesn't really use a committee like a lot of these coaches use now. He uses a guy. And so that's probably going to be Jonathan Brooks or Cedric Baxter. Draft them on your C2C team. Jahmyr Gibbs has been one of my favorite players to watch over the last 3 years. I think he was the running back 14 in his class in 2020. I was watching high school film. I was like, there are not 14 guys better than this guy. One of the most dynamic pass catchers we've seen probably since Christian McCaffrey come out of the NFL draft, can legitimately line up in the slot out wide at wide receiver. The arrow routes, the rail routes, the wheel routes out of the backfield. If his offensive coordinator uses him correctly, he has the potential to be one of the best dual threat running backs that we've seen in some time. And even better than Christian McCaffrey, because Christian McCaffrey does a lot with screens and out of the backfield. I'm telling you that Jahmyr Gibbs can win 30, 40 yards away from the line of scrimmage. If you watch his tape at Georgia, you watch his tape at Georgia Tech, the wheel route was a staple of their offense, and they threw him the ball 15, 20, 30 yards down the field. That's what Jahmyr Gibbs is.
I thought he was better used at Georgia Tech than he was at Alabama.
I thought he was too, and I actually wrote something at the site when he left, when he entered the transfer portal, saying, the devil is better than the one that you don't. And in the passing game, I agree with you. He was utilized. Jeff Collins, who was the coach at the time, showed what his strengths really were in the receiving game. Bill O'Brien at Alabama, who's now back in New England, did not maximize Jahmyr Gibbs' potential. Oh man, I hope the Patriots don't draft him. I will be sick if the Patriots draft Jahmyr Gibbs. That would hurt.
What's your favorite landing spot for Gibbs?
The Chiefs. What are you talking about?
The Chiefs.
The Chiefs need a running back and a wide receiver, and he is both.
Yeah, we want everybody to go to the Chiefs, though.
Well, you asked.
You're right.
So there are. I want to talk about 2 of these guys. Actually, I can talk about all of them. I'll talk about 3 of these guys. Jace McClellan is the veteran there. If you look at Spark testing, athletic testing, Jace McClellan was the most athletic running back coming out of his class, and I guess he's going into his 3rd or 4th year.
He's going to his 4th year. So
he's going into his 4th year. He's a
2020.
2020, somewhere in there, but had an elite Spark score. Tore his ACL his 2nd year, didn't play. Now he's back, and now he's going to be the guy. But there's a freshman there that reminds me. He reminds me of Jahmyr Gibbs. He reminds me of Jahmyr Gibbs in the fact that Jahmyr Gibbs utilized controlled acceleration to defeat angles. Jahmyr Gibbs isn't always the fastest guy, but he is a great accelerator.
He is pretty freaking fast, though.
He is pretty freaking fast, but he can. I don't even know how to describe this. He can turn his dial back and forth to create different angle problems.
He's Aaron Jones in the NFL. Is his best comp. That's exactly how Aaron Jones plays too.
Yes.
If you want, for the people who are listening who have not watched a bunch of Jahmyr Gibbs, I think that's the best comp you're going to get. He's not quite Alvin Kamara, which I've seen a lot because I don't think his contact balance is all the way there. No. He's Aaron Jones. And I think Justice Haynes is, like, I think you're probably pretty close there. Like, he's on the Aaron Jones spectrum as well.
And he has a little LaShawn McCoy in him too. We got to go to break here. When we come back, we'll finish this conversation about who's replacing Jahmyr Gibbs in Alabama. We'll get to wide receivers. We'll do it quickly. And we'll see if we can talk about some spring games. We might not have time, but we'll see. It's Felix Sharpe, Chris Moxley. This is Campus2Canton on Better Sports Network.
Campus2Canton. Moose and Keith. Weekdays at 10 a.m. Eastern on Better Sports Network.
Calvin Ridley yesterday, he applied for reinstatement from the National Football League.
Ridley, Kirk, Zay Jones, Travis Etienne, Trevor Lawrence. That is crazy potent on offense.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. I mean, Ridley's great.
I think Trevor Lawrence is a guy I want in fantasy this year.
I think you're probably right. I think they're just going to get better and better. First off, Peterson's a wonderful offensive mind, a great head coach, and we've seen that and saw that this year as Jacksonville made it to the postseason. And Trevor Lawrence, anybody that questioned whether or not he could play in the National Football League or just how good he was going to be in the NFL, those questions were answered this past season as in the second half of the year. Statistically speaking, he was a top 3 quarterback in the NFL. That's how good Trevor Lawrence is. You throw Calvin Ridley into the mix, he's going to be great. Yeah, I think Lawrence is a guy you want. I think Ridley's a guy you want. Clearly, Travis Etienne is going to be one of those early, first-round selections as well, being the dual-threat running back that he is, not only running, but also catching the ball out of the backfield, Keith, and the ability to take something small and take it to the house. Take a 5-yard dump pass, make a guy miss in the open field, and he's gone. I mean, you saw that with Travis Etienne this past season for Jacksonville. Yeah, sky's the limit. I mean, I think you're going to go from a team in the year span where you wanted no part of the Jacksonville Jaguars when you're looking at fantasy football to where you want as many Jaguars as you possibly can because they're going to be really, really productive. And let's see if they get their tight end back as well, who had
Evan Ingram was great.
And Evan Ingram, who was great this past season.
Yeah. I mean, if they keep that whole core together, their offense is going to be one of the best in football. Like, I legitimately think that they could be one of the best offenses in football.
Zay Jones, Evan Ingram, Christian Kirk, then you throw
Ridley,
Travis Etienne, Trevor Lawrence, a good offensive line, and you've got Doug Peterson being creative calling.
Right.
And you look at that division. The Colts are a mess.
Yep.
Titans
look like they're on the downslide.
Titans are on the downslide, right? That window is clearly closed. And then you got the Houston Texans.
Years away from relevancy.
Yeah.
I mean, Jacksonville could win 11 games next year.
Moose and Keith. Weekdays at 10 a.m. Eastern on Better Sports Network.
Chris, you don't even know these songs, do you?
I don't know this one. I knew the Paper Planes last time.
I think that's Rich Homie Quan, I think. Throw some V's on it. It's Felix Sharpe, Chris Moxley. This is Campus2Canton on Better Sports Network. When we do a good job the previous segment, Will Schutte rewards us with good music coming back from the break. We've had some bad segments, though, so we've been punished before. We've been talking about the guys who are going to replace these players who are going to the NFL draft. And we've gotten long-winded, so let's try to get through these because, Chris, I think the opportunity that we have here is to educate like the casual fan on names to watch so that then when they turn on a spring game on a Saturday or college football in the fall, they say, hey, those Campus2Canton guys, they told me about this guy. Jace McClellan, I think he was in the 2020 class. I think he was the most athletic running back according to Spark scores. And you can look at that testing.
He was.
Yeah, you just go to ESPN, type in ESPN recruiting, and type in the name of the player. And if they've tested, you'll find their information there. I don't know if that website is still up. But Jace McClellan, Justice Haynes, we talked about him before we went to the break. My number one running back in the freshman class, even over Cedric Baxter at Texas, because of how he moves on the field. Does not take direct contact, will recoil his shoulders and kind of explode to break tackles. And the word is in Alabama that he has been explosive in scrimmages. Now, does that mean he's going to get on the field this year? I don't know, but the names in front of him, Jamarian Miller, Roydell Williams. Jamarian Miller, excellent receiving player. He had 73 catches his last season in high school, and they lined him up like outside at wide receiver. I think Jamarian Miller is a good player too. I'm not a fan of Roydell Williams. Some people try to convince me of that, but
he's like this year's version of like Bijan Robinson, right? Like
this year's version of Bijan. That is a good comparison. Yes, that's who he is. But there are two more. There are three exciting players here in McClellan, Miller, and Justice Haynes, the freshman who's going to get a lot of pub. I really love Justice Haynes. Hugh Freeze is the new coach at Auburn. Auburn's losing Tank Bigsby to the NFL draft. Jarquez Hunter, smaller bowling ball type player. He's going to be the number. As a matter of fact, they had their spring game last weekend. They gave Jarquez Hunter one carry and then took him out the game. Usually that means that, all right, we got to make sure that this guy, we got to put him in bubble wrap. We'll give him a ceremonial first touch and get him out of the game. He's going to be the starter. And he might run for 1,300 yards this season in Hugh Freeze's offense, even though I don't think Hugh Freeze has ever had a 1,000-yard rusher. But I'm not sure. If he's smart, Jarquez Hunter would be the focus of his offense. There's also a second-year player, Damari Alston, who y'all should pay attention to. He's he is a difficult tackle. That's who's there.
Yeah, I like Hunter. We saw him flash as a true freshman 2 years ago, probably a little bit more extensively. He really impressed. He had pretty good breakaway rushes, and so I thought that was really interesting because that's still hard to do as a freshman. Even like a lot of it came against poor competition, like Group of 5 competition, but still, it's still doing it as a true freshman. Damari Alston is pretty interesting. I think we liked him a little bit last year, maybe above consensus. I don't know if we liked him above consensus, but it was certainly it was a guy that we were certainly interested in, right? They also have Brian Batty there, who's like their third string back, who's like a transfer from USF. I'm not sure what his role is going to be in this offense.
I thought it was Batey. I love Brian Batty. Batey. I love.
Batey, yeah, I actually don't know how to pronounce his name. But he's small. He's like 180. He's like 185, 190. Like he's a tiny dude, but he's explosive.
He's very explosive.
He might be the kickoff. He might be the kick returner for them because he did it at USF and was pretty good at it.
And let's not shortchange Sean Jackson, who is going to be. So what Mayan Williams is for Ohio State, this bigger 220-pound, 230-pound guy, Sean Jackson at Auburn is that guy. I'm not telling you Sean Jackson is an NFL player, but he definitely has a man's body. And if you have a game in the rain and you want to give the defense somebody that they don't want to tackle, put Sean Jackson in the game. Put Sean Jackson in the game. Zach Evans at Ole Miss. I think people know this, but Zach Evans was the backup
RB2
for Lane Kiffin. Quinshon Judkins took the country by storm as a true freshman. Didn't get an offer. I don't think he was offered by Alabama. Was a 3-star prospect.
So I don't remember if he was offered by Alabama or not. He may have been late, but the story is Nick Saban never got to watch him, right? And so Lane Kiffin was out there. There's a picture of him at one of Quinshon Judkins' high school games in the pouring rain by himself, sitting in the stands, watching this dude. I don't think Saban ever saw him. And so he's a kid that Kiffin stole out of Alabama's backyard because he's from Alabama.
Yes, he is. When Ole Miss played Alabama last year, I think in the press conference, Nick Saban said, yeah, we probably should have offered that guy or something to that effect, admitting the mistake and letting him get away from the Crimson Tide.
Alabama's got 70 dudes who are recruiting one time. Like, how do you miss on Quinshon Judkins?
Yeah.
It was, and that's a player also that at Campus2Canton we were 30 spots above consensus on. Like, he was the RB 35, 45, depending where you looked. I think we had him in our top 10. We were really big fans of him.
We did.
But we did not go and sit at his games. We didn't need to do that to determine he was actually a good player. Just saying. No. Nick, talk to us.
Talk to us. Get at us at Campus2Canton.com. Kendrick Riscano, he's the freshman there. I don't know a lot about him. I don't know if you can speak to him at all, but he would be the other player. And I don't know if Ulysses Bentley, who was a good player for SMU before he transferred to Ole Miss, he kind of got overshadowed by Quinshon Judkins there. But I think I don't know if Ulysses Bentley is still there. He may have transferred a second time, but if not, those are the names to know there.
No, I still think he's there. Riscano's kind of an undersized back, right? He's 190. He doesn't really have prototypical size yet, but I do think that he's pretty explosive and he has pretty good receiving chops. So I think he's someone who could earn his role as the RB2. I'm not as high as him on him as I think the rest of our staff is, but a player that we really like on aggregate.
There we go. Let's move over here to the wide receiver position, Chris. Jackson Smith-Njigba. He is probably going to be 1-for-1 replaced with Emeka Egbuka. Emeka Egbuka, the number one wide receiver in the class of 2020. No, he's going to be a third-year player next year. So that makes him 2021, the 2021 class, because Julian Fleming was 2020. Okay. Emeka Egbuka is probably the second best wide receiver in the country after Marvin Harrison Jr. Yes, Ohio State has the top two wide receivers in the country. And you know what? People have said that they don't like this 2023 wide receiver class. Jackson Smith-Njigba, Jordan Addison, Quentin Johnston, Zay Flowers, these guys. If you don't like this class, you're going to hate 2024. Because after Marvin Harrison Jr., it is a steep drop from him. But Jackson Smith-Njigba manned the slot there at Ohio State, and Emeka Egbuka is going to take that same role. I would also watch out for Carnell Tate, true freshman, who is, I think Carnell Tate is number 80, has been having an excellent season at Ohio State. They go through this tradition of all the freshmen have a black stripe on their helmet. And Chris is rolling his eyes because
Ohio State's just got the stupidest traditions.
Nonsense.
I'm sorry.
This is the nonsense tradition. I agree with you, being a Michigan fan.
Everything's got, you got to black out the M everywhere you go. Can't use it. You can't use the word M for a week on campus. Just take yourselves a little bit seriously, Ohio State.
I wonder what happens when they have to call their mothers. What do they call their mothers? But they have a black stripe down their helmet for all their freshmen. You lose your black stripe when you become a Buckeye, and it's supposed to be a big deal for them. Carnell Tate was the first freshman to lose his black stripe for the Buckeyes. Take that for what you will. He's a little bit of a bigger player, probably going to play in the boundary or the flanker. I don't know that he's like a guy with tremendous speed, and I kind of think of the wide receiver that I put out onto the field side to be a field stretcher. So I think he's probably a boundary receiver. That's the position that Marvin Harrison Jr. plays right now. He's probably going to be Marvin Harrison Jr.'s backup.
Yeah, he probably will be. I think Emeka Egbuka, who I agree, he's the second most talented wide receiver in the country, will probably be top 15 pick in next year's draft. All the focus is on Marvin Harrison Jr., but this dude can seriously play a really, really good. He's way more in the DJ Moore, Deebo Samuel type of mold, and Marvin Harrison is the 6'4". I don't want to say I don't compare him to Mike Williams because we've done that before.
No, I would compare him with Jamar Chase. He's a bigger Jamar Chase. You can just throw
he's
the
a
ball
bigger
up to
Jamar Chase. Okay, that's fair.
That's what I compare him to.
But Carnell Tate's a good player. They're bringing in Brandon Inniss as well. Not sure how much run he'll get this year, but they also have Jaden Ballard, who I think is an interesting player who might get snaps at every position in the offense because I think he's pretty explosive. So I'm interested to see what they do with Jaden Ballard.
Jaden Ballard could be for that team what Jamison Williams once was for that team. Jamison Williams, when Ohio State needed a big play, and they had Garrett Wilson and Jackson Smith-Njigba and Chris Olave. When they needed a deep ball, they brought in Jamison Williams, and they threw it deep to him, and then he transferred to Alabama. Jaden Ballard is in his second year. He's a guy that can get behind coverage and provide the big play for you.
He's a good player.
He supposedly really tore up camp last year, and then we didn't see him. So yeah, we could see him this year. Quentin Johnston at TCU. They're going to have probably a litany of players fill that spot for him. One, Chris Moxley, is an Alabama transfer, JoJo Earl, who I have compared to, if you're old enough and you remember Dante Hall, the former Chiefs punt returner and wide receiver, who kind of just moved like a cat. That's what JoJo Earl is. And he was injured his first couple of seasons in Alabama. He now gets a fresh start for TCU.
I gave him the taller Rondale Moore comp when he was coming in, which is essentially, I think, kind of like how he plays, which isn't that different from Dante Hall, right? But he's like 5'10 and a half, so he's a little bit taller. They also have Jordan Hudson, who came on the scene last year as a true freshman. I think Savion Williams, though, is my best bet to lead this team in receiving. Just if I was to guess, who's Quentin Johnston. He kind of hyped him up as maybe the next guy. They also have Darius Davis and Tay Barber, so the whole receiver room is going to be overhauled this offseason.
It is, but it's been a good offense. So Judge Earl has been one of my favorite players to track. He has not had the success that I thought he would. He actually played at an elite program in Texas high school, but we'll see. We'll see if he, with this clean slate, what he does. Jordan Addison departs USC. Lincoln Riley is always retooling. He gets a freshman who's compared to Tyreek Hill and Zachariah Branch, who's going to return punts for them, who is going to be the deep ball for them, who, again, another player who's got very positive spring reports. He is number one. Number one at USC has meant something. He's, as a freshman, he is number one. You got Dorian Singer, who transfers in from Arizona. The same way Lincoln Riley last year got Jordan Addison to transfer from Pitt. He gets Dorian Singer from Arizona this year. They've also got Mario. I mean, all three of these guys provide a different skill set. Dorian Singer, more of the possession guy. Zachariah Branch can do a little bit of everything. And I guess Mario Williams is the slot guy. But it's a diverse wide receiver core. And Caleb Williams has a lot of options to throw to.
Yeah, it's really deep, too. I mean, that's not even including guys like Taj Washington and Brendan Rice, who will certainly be in their rotation.
I want to skip ahead here because we've got a little bit of time. And my hope is that the folks that are watching this are going to be watching the spring games on Saturday. It's a lot of people in action. Ohio State. Don't watch the USFL or whatever leagues. Watch college football this weekend. Ohio State, Arkansas, Clemson, Mississippi State, Michigan State, Penn State, Virginia, Wake Forest, Tennessee, North Carolina, USC, Florida State, Texas A&M, Arizona, South Carolina. I didn't even name all of them. Those teams are all in action this weekend for their spring games. Chris, what's one thing that you'll be watching for?
How the wide receiver room at North Carolina shakes out. They brought in Devontae Walker, who we actually had on one of our Campus2Canton podcasts or network of podcasts this week. Really great interview on Chasing the Natty if you want to check that out.
A cool Christian guy, Watson type. Christian Watson type.
Fat. He beat up Georgia last year. Really, really good player. I want to see how this room shakes out. Lots of options for Drake May, who is, I think, going to be a top 5 pick in next year's draft. Want to have the wide receiver one on his team.
I'm looking at Drew Aller. I think Drew Aller has not started a game, and I think that he's one of the 3 best quarterbacks in college football. Drew Aller for Penn State. When I watch high school film, I can't think of a player who has made some of the throws that Drew Aller has made. And Penn State's offense between he and Nick Singleton, excellent. We'll be here to talk about those guys and more next week. You guys have a good week. Peace.